Have you wondered about living elsewhere after you retire? Well, we have, almost daily. As you know, it's not an overnight decision. Hi, this is Gil
and Gene
of Retire There, a podcast about places to consider living in during your retirement. We started this show for selfish reasons, because we will be retiring in the next few years, but we're not sure where. Then a light bulb went off in Gene's head. What are others doing? With so many baby boomers retiring, there must be many relocating. So we decided, let's connect with them and pick their brains. But first, a little background. I'm Asian, born in Brazil, and grew up in Flatbush, Brooklyn. I'm an engineer turned attorney and practicing higher ed law at a college who loves working with students, faculty, and staff.
I am not Asian. Born and raised in Long Island, New York, a place I always wanted to leave.
Aww.
I am a law librarian working in a court who loves his job. We've lived in Bay Ridge, Brooklyn, New York for many years and have been thinking about our future home.
So we'll be speaking to folks from around the country and now around the world who have moved to venues of their dreams and more. And we will share their stories and we will share their intimate secrets.
No.
I'm just kidding, Gene. But we will provide information that you may not find anywhere else. So stay tuned. Good evening, everyone. We have a special episode today. We are covering our first Asian country, Bali, Indonesia. Now, it's not our first foray into the Asian continent, right, Gene?
That's right. We covered Israel a few weeks ago, and Israel, believe it or not, is part of the Asian continent. Now, I didn't know that. I thought I was going to apply to be a contestant on Jeopardy, but I guess that's not going to happen, Gil.
Okay, well, there we go. Another lost financial opportunity, Gene. That's our life. So Bali is exactly 12 hours ahead of New York. And until a few days ago, I had the wrong date in our calendar, as I hadn't properly taken into account the time zone difference. And we call ourselves professionals. Okay. Okay. We're still working on this. Indonesia is the third most populated country in Asia, with 273 million people, and only about 1.5% reside in Bali. However, there are about 4,000 U.S. expats in Bali. So, about today's special guest, here's a little background.
Neill was born and raised in Brooklyn, New York, the best place to be from. He has a bachelor's degree from the Evergreen State College in Olympia, Washington, and a master's from the University of Oregon. He was an entrepreneur in Silicon Valley and developed software as a company founder, as well as a product user experience designer. Neill's still working, though it sounds like a paradise. It really does. He owns a boutique hotel in Bali and handles the online side of the business. He also fixes things when he's able. Neill's interests include daily walks, reading, and, as he notes, keeping up with the world, which I guess you can do from anywhere these days, Gil.
Yeah, that's the beauty of the digital nomad, as well as during COVID, all the remote activity. But I wish we weren't in the basement of our Brooklyn apartment.
Brooklyn home, you mean?
Brooklyn home. Brooklyn home, but we are in the basement. That's where our recording studio is, right next to the washer and dryer. All right. So, Neill, welcome to Retire There with Gil and Gene. We are so thrilled to have you. Now, I just want to note that it is a little after 10 p.m. So if I start to fall asleep, it's because, I'm getting used to falling asleep earlier these days. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah, you're a night bird.
Yeah. So Neill Kramer, thank you for joining our show. Tell us, how did you wind up in Bali?
Hello there. Thank you for having me. It was a circuitous route. I had, in 2015, gone to Thailand for a month to check it out, with some thoughts about retiring. But really, that was my first visit to Asia. And then 2016, I went again for a month, but this time to Vietnam and Cambodia, 3 weeks in Vietnam, 1 week in Cambodia. and then in 2017, 1 month in Bali. So after 3 years of this, my experience in Bali was such a tremendous experience that while I was there for a month, I actually bought a villa, even though I was still based in the U.S. So I bought the villa, came back to America, and started to pack up and get an estate sale and sell 98% of my things, and came to Bali with 2 very large bags and a backpack. And I've been here ever since.
So did you say that you were working in Bali and then you just decided to buy a villa?
Not working, just came to Bali like I came to Thailand and Vietnam. Came to visit, not to work. I mean, I have a retirement visa, and technically I'm not working, but running the hotel, doing the online stuff is, I guess, would be called a hobby.
Okay. Is this part of the Silicon Valley profile? You guys are so just daring and entrepreneurial.
Well, that's a good question. I think a lot of entrepreneurs in Silicon Valley get stuck there because once you have a success, and my success was very small. I sold a software company, but we were only like 4 people. We had a good return considering, but it was nothing that even made the news because in Silicon Valley, selling a company has to be in the hundreds of millions or billions for it to be news. But when you do sell a company, the first thing that people ask you is, what are you going to do next? And the answer would be something, technological, something, a new company. And could I make a bigger company? Can I get a bigger exit? That kind of thing. And it's its own treadmill in a way. So once I had my fill with Silicon Valley, I didn't really want to stay there. And so then the options are, do I want to move somewhere else in the U.S. or do I want to leave the U.S. entirely?
Okay. I am curious. You were born and raised in Brooklyn. Was it college that brought you out to the West Coast?
Yeah. I started with accounting because my parents wanted me to be an accountant, and I didn't know what I wanted to be, and they were only high school educated. But after 1 year of college, we kind of had a falling out in the parking lot of the dormitory when they came to visit.
No.
Because I wanted to do courses like. Actually, one was Eastern philosophy, which opened me up to other ways of thinking, Asian ways that I didn't even, I don't know if it had an effect on my decision to move to Asia. But that was one class. Another one was abnormal psychology because I thought, thinking what is normal? Because my parents, be an accountant, that's a normal thing to do. And, you look at the wanted ads, and accountant is pretty early on into the job listing. So I think for them, it was a very practical thing. But for me, when they took me, when I was maybe 10 or 12, they took me to a test for my future career just to get a sense, what does their son want? And it turned out to be novelist or architect. And they hated both of those answers. I think they may have wanted a refund because architect, involves a very lengthy career. Getting
5
ready
years.
for that. And novelists forget about it because that's 1 in a million. So accountant, was like, okay, I think there's a lot of accounting jobs out there. So Neill will find something, with that. So once I kind of broke away from my parents' influence, I left college after that first year. I did do the abnormal psychology and the Eastern philosophy course. which was great, but I guess not practical. And then I, luckily taught tennis because I had learned tennis at a camp and nobody cared about tennis. But then by the time I finished my 1 year of college, a lot of people wanted to learn tennis. And fortunately, in our area in Brooklyn, a tennis bubble complex opened. So I was able to teach and earn something like $10 an hour for a private lesson. Oh. And that was in like 1973 or so. So my friends were earning maybe $2 an hour and I was earning 10. And then I was an entrepreneur then because some of the people I taught, they were paying $60 an hour. And I asked them, would they like to learn on a private, in a public court for $25 an hour, which was not really totally kosher to do. But I took a few of my favorite clients off the private court to a public court. They saved money and I made 25 instead of 10. Wow. So with that money, I went abroad. I bought a Eurail pass. I thought I'd be gone for 2 weeks throughout Europe, but I ended up staying abroad 5.5 months when I was 17 years old after my first year of college. I started college a little young because I skipped a year of high school, actually. I went from 8th grade to 10th grade, which was a mistake. But
yeah.
In any case,
that same regret.
That gave me the travel bug. And in fact, when I did go abroad then, and I met so many people from all over the world, I promised myself that one day I would live in another country. But I didn't do it until I was about 60 years old. So it was a pretty big delay. Marriage and a child and a career happened to get in the way of that. but didn't really get in the way. It was more like I pushed that decision down and let other things become a priority.
Yeah, it's interesting, the road that we take and the little segues that come along the way, right? Mm-hmm. It's like our jobs get in the way of our new podcast. So,
but it's interesting. You mentioned that before you moved to Bali, you had an estate sale. A lot of people, they have trouble getting rid of stuff, and they maybe call 1-800-JUNK, or they have garage sales, or they give stuff away. You're the first person we've come across that has had an estate sale. I thought that was brilliant. I just have a question. When they're done selling everything, the stuff that's left, do they take care of that, or do you have to get rid of it?
No, they take care of everything. That's part of the beauty of it, is that you're able to, once you sign the contract, you're able to leave. You don't have to be in the state or in the country. And anything that's left over goes to charity. One of the things about that is you should meet the estate sale people, which I did before I left, and assess, are these people on the level? Are they honest? Try to get some references if you can, because once you're gone, they will sell everything, and they're supposed to give you, in my case, 50%. And they did send me a check on the order of $5,000 and change. Of course, I had some paintings and things that, had I looked at the retail value of everything, it's not a big number, but I was okay with that number because, in an estate sale, if you have $1,000 painting, it may go for $100, because they're, they have to move everything. They have to sell everything. So they can't try to get high prices for things. But, it helped me in my, paid for my plane ticket and more. I think my plane ticket was $1,200, $1,300. So the $5,000 came in handy, but it reduced my possessions to very, very, very little.
So it sounds like you're not the type of person who's too attached to things, right? Because you just kind of said, hey, estate sale people, take care of this. And you were ready to board and leave. I mean, leave the country.
Yeah, I mean, I do get attached to certain things, and it was a difficult decision to hire the estate person. And I had done some investigation about sending my stuff to Bali, my closest possessions or my most, my most endearing type things that I wanted to hold on to. But I created a small box to give to my son, who's currently in the U.S., a padded box that's easily, that could store well for many years. And I filled it with memorabilia and old photos and some documents that are, even though I might have taken a digital file of it, it might be my grandmother's birth certificate or something like that. And things of that type that were, I went through all my stuff to kind of pull out one box full. And my ex-wife was holding that for my son. And when my son gets old enough to get his own place, she'll give it to him, or I will if I'm there. Mm-hmm. So yeah, and it is if you are going to be an expat, the main decision is, do you want to move your stuff or do you want to sell your stuff? Mm-hmm. And in the case of selling, I would recommend holding on to a few things, one box or two boxes. Mm-hmm. I wouldn't get crazy and give people half a dozen boxes to look after for your benefit. Because you don't want to put your burden onto somebody else.
Yeah. Okay. So talk to us about Bali. Where exactly are you and what's it like?
I'm in southern Bali in a tourist area next to Canggu, which is, I would call it a hipster community, primarily younger people from all over the world. And it's a very heavy digital nomad community. So there's a lot of co-working type facilities. So people could pay a monthly fee or a daily fee to come there and get the Wi-Fi. And then they'll have some coffee or whatever, and they'll mingle. And sometimes there's events, especially pre-COVID. There's a lot of events where people could talk to groups and things like that. I've attended a few of those. And, Bali is an island. It's primarily Hindu in a Muslim country. As you mentioned, it's the third largest Asian country. I think it's the fourth largest populated country in the world. Mm-hmm. So you have China, India, America, and Indonesia. Primarily Muslim, like I said. But Bali is its own culture within Indonesia. There's something like 17,000 islands, so it's a massive archipelago. And so you've got hundreds of different languages. You've got a broad swath of people from Christian to Hindu to Muslim to everything. Mm-hmm. But the Balinese are unique because they, even though we had Dutch, they had Dutch, the Dutch colonized Bali in I think the 1800s. They refused to give up their way of life. So the Dutch had to, in fact, what happened is when they arrived, the kings, there's 7 regions, and so there were 7 kings. When they got to Bali, there was a massive suicide with kings and their wives, their servants. And rather than face the Dutch and change their life, they decided to kill themselves. Once that happened, the Dutch decided to still colonize, but really work with the Balinese to try to preserve the culture to the best way they could.
Wow, that is so interesting.
So once Indonesia became independent, it was a lot easier for Bali to assert itself as a really unique culture. And the benefit of the Dutch was really that all 7 regions united. So now, before the Dutch, there was some skirmishes and some violence if there were some resource issues or territorial issues. But now it's a very spiritual, very peaceful island. They pray for almost everything. If they buy a new scooter, they're going to have a ceremony. They're going to have a ceremony for intersections of certain roads
Wow.
for safety. There's just prayers about everything, and it's a very colorful culture, very tolerant culture, and it's just really phenomenal to be around them. My builder for my hotel was Balinese. I could have chosen like an Australian builder and had an easier time with English, but paid more because I'd be dealing with a foreigner. But I wanted to get involved with the Balinese, so I chose a Balinese builder, and it turned out to be great. We're actually friends. I tried to pass them on to other people.
Okay. I just want to let our audience know that sound in the back, Neill explained earlier, is construction. So if you guys hear that, I know it sounded like some dogs in the back earlier, but it's not something that we're able to control. So, but once Neill speaks, we can hear him fine. I just wanted to let people know not to get, wondering where that's coming from. Okay. Sorry, Neill.
Thank you. I'm sorry about that, but
No problem.
One aspect of living in a tourist area is even during COVID, we've had continual construction, which is, I guess, a good sign that people are hopeful that Bali will return to normal, and most likely it will.
And
how has that affected your hotel business?
I mean, terribly. We've had something like 5%. Not all hotels in Bali has had something like 5% occupancy or less during the COVID. There's been no international flights for almost a year. There are local flights coming from Jakarta, and so if you're desperate, foreigners go into Jakarta and then they take a domestic flight, but they have to go through quarantine and all the normal things. But the tourist numbers are down, over 90%.
Wow.
Now there's talk of a green zone, a green corridor between some countries coming in, China, maybe Singapore, where they can go to designated parts of Bali that have been where the COVID is very, very light. We don't have it too heavily here, but we have it. So unlike New Zealand, which is virus-free, we have COVID here. So if we have tourism, they want to limit the areas where tourists can go. But it hasn't been fully resolved yet. But we're hopeful. The vaccine's here. And slowly but surely, people are getting vaccinated.
Okay. And you mentioned that your hotel, it's called the Ohana Retreat Bali, and it's in. You said it's next to Canggu. What town are you in?
We're in Pereranan, and there's a special way of saying it, Pereranan, the Indonesian way, that I still have trouble with, so I can't say the name of my own town.
And what made you decide to build a hotel?
Well, my initial plan was to this villa I bought, which I had sold since then. I was going to go into the villa, which I did, and retire. And so I started reading on my veranda, looking at the rice fields. I actually switched from e-books and screens to paper books, and sat there and had my tea and looked out and got into the peacefulness of Bali, the beauty of Bali, and had a little private pool there and a little garden. And it was absolutely idyllic. But after about 6 months, I sort of was like, okay, tomorrow I guess I wake up and read again, and the next day read more. So I guess I don't want to say bored, but I just started thinking, what else is there to do in Bali? And we started driving around and found next to Canggu is Pereranan. It's west slightly. And we found a piece of land that was owned by Russians. They had bought it 7 years ago. Very good price, but it had gone up substantially. But still, we thought, this is an up and coming area. It's not Canggu, but it's maybe 7 minutes by motor scooter. And it's an opportunity kind of thing. And let me try to build, which I had done after Silicon Valley. I had built some single family residences, both in Sonoma County in California and near Port Townsend, Washington. I had success with that. I worked with an architect to create a cool design, and I sold one in 2 days, and I sold another in less than about 35 days. I'd say about a month.
Wow.
So that was pretty quick. And there was profit and stuff, but I didn't like the lifestyle because I would be renting and then building something for somebody else. And then I thought, then I got to do that again, and I'll be renting again somewhere else. And I didn't feel I could stabilize in a community. And so then I started traveling, like I told you, and Bali kind of captured my imagination. The hotel itself is maybe 6,000 or something square feet. So it's significant. My other homes were 1,600, that kind of thing. And there's 6 rooms to sleep, 4 loft rooms, 2 normal rooms, 2 deluxe rooms, and an apartment where my partner and I stay. And I just have a modest apartment, 1 bedroom, small living room where we meet the guests. We get their passport photos, and we give them the key. So they come directly into our living room. We give them a welcome drink. And then once we give them their key, we show them the room. And then they could always come by with questions about where to eat or something like that. And so we're available. But it's kind of a design decision that I made so that I could interact with these guests, because one of the things that is really incredible about Bali is the world. It's a world-class destination. And to give you an example, we were open June of 2019, mostly living through the pandemic, but still, given the pandemic, we've had visitors from 31 different countries, which to me is real fun. It's real exciting.
Yeah, you have great reviews online. People,
thank you. Yeah,
they rave about you and Shelley.
Yeah.
Oh, thank you. Well, this is all intentional, because I didn't want to have a hotel where I was sort of like living in another villa and having a management team and that kind of thing. I wouldn't even want something like that. So this is it's kind of a premium guest house / boutique hotel. It's kind of 2 things, because it's not a normal hotel where you have a reception area and you're only dealing with staff. When people come to us, they're dealing with the owners from the beginning, and we're here for them, and they know that. So people who like that kind of personalized service, we can get scooters for them. We could rent bicycles for them. We help them out, getting car rentals, pick up at the airport. So we do whatever service we can. And they know that if something breaks in the room, I'm going to come there within minutes. If I can't fix it, I'll get somebody to come within 24 hours if I can, that kind of thing. And that leads to some of the reviews that you've read probably.
So are you walking distance to the town? Like, can I walk a block or so to get a cup of coffee? How does that?
Yep. Right around a block away is a restaurant. We have a little shared kitchen / mini restaurant here, but you have to order 1 day in advance. But if you just want to live here, you wake up, you walk maybe 2 minutes, 1 to 2 minutes, and you get to a cafe. There's some other restaurants within walking distance, and if you like walking, it would be about 12 minutes to get to the beach.
Oh,
where there's also some places to eat, and then further away, maybe 15 to 20, is an actual beach resort that has like a day club where you could hang out for the day and eat there. And then they have sort of ambient music, a little bit more for the younger crowd, but it's considered like a destination place. So that would be less than 20 minutes by foot. So we're next to some of that action. but we're much sleepier than Canggu. Canggu, there's, it's a hot spot. There's a lot going on.
It's funny. I was reading online, talking of beaches, that you miss Stinson Beach in Marin County in California. How do you compare that beach to the beach in Bali?
Stinson Beach would be a kind of a small little gem. It's actually pretty sizable, but you would get, 50, 60 people out there on that beach, except for maybe July 4th, where you might get a couple of hundred. But in Bali, beaches can have thousands of people, especially Kuta. If you go to Kuta, there could be along a stretch of maybe a mile, a few thousand people. And in any little spot, there might be 100 or something like that, or 60. But it just goes on and on, hotel after hotel. And in the evenings, they actually set up music stands so that you can walk from music venue to music venue.
Oh, wow.
You could literally just walk along the beach and have access to 6 or 7 different bands within a 10-minute walk. This was all pre-COVID. So that's the heart of the tourist area, Kuta. And then Canggu, we would have a few hundred people down at the beach there. And then if you come towards us, Ferraran, maybe 30 people on the beach any one time. We do have these events by the Balinese, which are kite festivals, and then you get several hundred spectators and tons of competition with different size kites, different activities that the kites do, different flying patterns, and it's really exciting to see that. But Stinson is kind of it's a lovely beach north of San Francisco, maybe 40 minutes, very windy road to get there. But once you're there, you kind of feel you're away from it all, and it's a little bit isolated, and there might be times when there's only 10 or 20 people on the whole beach. If you go further up to Point Reyes, it's a massive beach, and there might only be 50 people, out there. It's a national recreational center preserve. So it's not very populated at all. But there's millions of people in Bali, and throughout the tourist year, you might get 4 or 5 million tourists a year coming to Bali during pre-COVID. But now it's very slow. All my partners here.
I'm terrible.
Hi, Shelley. How are you?
Nice to meet you. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
I just do my gardening.
She does gardening. She's growing
thank
grapes.
you for emailing.
See you later.
See you later. Bye-bye.
I have a question about cost of living in Bali. You wrote a book. It's available on Amazon. It's called Retire in Bali. Retire for $1,500 US a month. Is that the case? You can live on $1,500 a month?
You can. I mean, if you follow the recipe, I guess I gave, you could have housing costs as low as $500 or $600 a month to get a small villa. If you were to share, you can get a bigger villa for about the same cost. It includes things like having a scooter instead of a car. So with a scooter, you're talking about, a purchase of $1,100, $1,200, and then a monthly cost of maybe $10,
oh my goodness.
$15. My phone, which is a Telkomsel, which is the provider here, about $3 a month. You get 2 gigabytes.
Wow.
$3? $3?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah,
oh my goodness.
36,000 rupiah, and right now it's about 14,000 rupiah per dollar. So it's under $3. Because Indonesians, the average salary here is about 2,700,000 per month. So it's 200 and something dollars per month is the average salary. So it's a state-supported phone company, and the same thing with electricity. Now, in my case of electricity, I have to pay a high minimum because the way they charge you is they assess your total needs. So let's say if all my rooms are full and all my lights are on and all the air conditioning is on, what would I need? And then they discount that to a base fee, but that comes out to about $2,200,000. So $150 a month, something like that, for my electric. But that's running a hotel.
Yeah.
For an individual coming here, electricity might be a month, $40 to $80 a month, including aircon, maybe $100 at the most. So you've got internet, which is next to nothing. Now, home internet is not next to nothing, but it could be $40 a month, 30 or 40, well, let's say 40 for high speed. And, a scooter and a phone and renting. Owning is different because if you want to be near the beach, you could pay $200,000 or $300,000, $400,000 US for a home. But if you want to rent away from the beach, you could be looking at a 3-bedroom home with a pool, with housekeeping, gardening, all that stuff for maybe $1,200 to $1,500.
Wow.
So it's a different scale. Now that sounds low, but if you're an Indonesian, they pay, for example, when they come and work, they leave their village typically, come to a tourist area, stay in what's called a KOST, KOST, and pay $800,000 to $900,000 per month. So $1,400,000 is $100. So they're paying $70 to $80 per month to sleep. And for that, they get a room with like one light bulb and a toilet where that's a squat toilet. And then they have to get their own internet, which is only $3 or $4 a month. But that's the base lifestyle here for a local. So they're paying $70, and we're talking about $400, $500, $600 a month for a villa. So it's a different structure, it's a different aesthetic. But we're paying massive amounts, even at $500, $600 a month compared to the locals. So that's how you can sort of keep it in perspective.
So Neill, can you talk to us about healthcare? What's available, and if there's, let's say I'm there for a month or two and I have an emergency, do I need to worry?
Yeah, so healthcare in Bali is good for Indonesian standards. There's several private hospitals where the doctors have all been trained by going to Western universities and medical schools. So they come back to their home country and practice. And so I've had a few conditions. I go to a dermatologist. She's wonderful, fluent English, Balinese, but went outside her country for education. I had a urologist, also same story. So it's good. If you have something very unusual or rare disease, they probably don't have leading edge. Actually, they don't have leading edge healthcare here. So in that case, you might have to go to Singapore, which under normal conditions would be, 3-hour flight, something like that. So you have to decide if you're going to be an expat and live in a third world country, to what extent you feel comfortable with the healthcare here. For most conditions, they can help you here. Even cancer and things of that type, they can help you here. But if you have unusual blood type and something happens to you that's rare, for example, then you might be better off living in a first world country.
Or do your research.
My health is good. I'm 63. And the way I handle healthcare personally is I did start with insurance. It was kind of expensive because I've had melanoma So I have a pre-existing condition, and that bumps my cost up. So what I do now is I just set aside $250 every month. I have a cash account, and I consider that money not mine, and it's the hospital's money. But it's sort of like a little bit of a health plan where I'm, making sure I always have a certain amount of cash ready. Now, in terms of fees, there's 3 tiers of fees here. There's the local price, there's the tourist price, and then there's the Kitas price, which is sort of a long-term resident price. Kitap and Kitas. They're basically words that mean resident. I'm not a citizen, but I have kind of a long-term resident status, so I don't have to update my my Kitas except for annually. So every year I have to get fingerprinted and go through immigration and get my next year's worth of residency. And that also gives me other benefits besides hospital, cultural institutions. I can show my Kitas and I can pay less. Not that they're very costly. Mm-hmm. The average cultural place here might be $5 and I might pay $2. Mm-hmm. But hospitals are a big ticket item, so it's good to have the Kitas price. Mm-hmm. So for example, I had a CAT scan because I had a cyst on my kidney. I'm just going to give you an example. Mm-hmm. And it was about 7 million rupees, so 1,500,000, in the range of $450, $500 for a CAT scan. Mm-hmm. Now, in the U.S., under Obama care, I had on my face a melanoma, not melanoma, but it was a sort of like a spot. So they used a little freezing, mm-hmm. like a can of freeze, and they shot my skin with that. Right. And my deductible was $195. The whole procedure took like 10 seconds, something mm-hmm. like that. But of course, they checked my face and all this mm-hmm. stuff. But it was still $195 deductible for me. Mm-hmm. So, that versus a CAT scan where you're under a machine that's, $1 million machine from Philips or whatever, for under $500 is still a good price to get a CAT scan.
Expats are not covered by Indonesian healthcare program, right?
Correct. There's local health only for locals, for citizens, and if you're outside of that, you're going to be in some kind of visa category. So a tourist visa, for example, that lasts up to 60 days, they would pay full retail price for healthcare, which would still be within the Indonesian pricing system, but it might be double what I pay, or maybe 40% higher than what I pay. And so I get a discount.
What about pharmacies? Do you need a prescription every time, or because we've heard in other countries?
Yeah, I mean, I have some allergies. So, for example, I had one of those vaporizer things. Mm-hmm. But when I want to get a new one, I don't have to present a prescription. I could just show the old one, and mm-hmm. they would just sell me a new one. And pills and medication are expensive, but not crazy expensive. And there's 2 types of pharmacies in Indonesia. One's called apotek, which is where the locals go. And then there's more of the, looking like 7-Eleven kind of pharmacy where the lights are really bright and it's very polished. And that's like usually Guardian. I think they might be an English or an Australian company. And they sell the same stuff, but for a lot more money, and they'll have more variety. But for example, if something's wrong with you and you're a local, you don't go buy a box of pills. You go buy a sheet of pills. So it might cost you $1 or $2 to get 10 pills. Mm-hmm. You don't have to buy 100 of them. Mm-hmm. So in America, you have to buy the whole box. Right. Here you can buy it by the sheet. Okay. So this is because if you look at the average monthly income, it makes sense to offer, mm-hmm. Sheets instead of boxes.
As a tourist, could I use the local?
Yes.
Okay. So
yes,
it's not just.
Yeah, and I've done that. It's best to go with somebody who can speak English, but I've had luck where even the apothecs, they hire usually English-speaking workers.
Okay.
Talking about speaking English, do you need to speak Indonesian there, or can you get away with English?
You can get away with English. It's nice to have a few things that you can say to people, basic phrases, hello, good morning, goodbye. It's just a nice gesture, but you don't need it. Now, if you want to have a conversation, I'm still struggling with Bahasa Indonesia, because even though it's Roman, it's a normal lettering, the words are very, very long. I don't know why, but there's 4 or 5 syllables to many of their words.
Wow.
And I just can't remember it.
Okay.
So that's a memory problem. But I have an Indonesian partner, so she can translate.
Lucky you.
That's always helpful. But for example, real estate, if you want to purchase something, you'll go to a notary instead of a lawyer, and that notary will speak English. Now, the document will be written in Indonesian, but they will translate and offer you a translated version. The legal copy is the Bahasa Indonesian copy. The English copy is not legal, but it's good to have for understanding.
Now, there's also a Balinese.
Yes.
Is that a dialect?
Yeah, exactly. There's hundreds of dialects here of Indonesian. And the country being an archipelago, you could imagine all the dialects. Every island has its own way of using some sort of half Indonesian, half ancient.
Okay,
so the Balinese sound different. Like my partner Shelley doesn't understand Balinese. It's that different.
Wow.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
So the majority of people who live in Bali, is there a quote unquote majority language?
Indonesian is the majority. All the Balinese. Yeah, the Balinese grow up. Every Indonesian grows up. It's mandatory that they learn Bahasa Indonesia. So it would be like, for example, if you're from America and you grew up in a household speaking Spanish, you go to school, you must learn English. It's the same thing. They all have to learn Indonesian. So they're all speaking usually 2 languages.
Okay.
And if I talk to a Balinese person, I ask them, when you go home, what do you speak? They say Balinese. They don't speak Indonesian.
Oh, interesting. Okay. Can you tell us what the weather is like?
Good question. It is warm all the time. We are 500 miles or so from the equator. So our temperatures range from about Fahrenheit 78 degrees to about 100.
Oh,
wow.
It usually feels, with humidity, it usually feels like 98 degrees by the time it's 10 a.m.
Oh my God.
Oh my goodness.
So right now you must be really hot. You're outside.
I have to be, well, I'm under shade, so I'm okay. And in the shade, it's probably 85 to 88 degrees, feeling like that.
You're lucky you have a pool.
And the pool gets heated up, solar heat every day. It's never really too cold. We do have a rainy season, and in the middle of that, like if you're on your scooter and you're going out and it's a lovely day and then the rain comes, usually for 20 minutes, 30 minutes, you will feel cool. You'll never feel cold. It'll be a cool rain, almost enjoyable, but you can get soaking wet unless you have your poncho on. And in the evenings, you don't need a sweater. It can get down to 82, something like that.
Oh, down to 82, Gene.
Yeah.
I heard it's cooler between June and August. Is that true?
Well, the range is about 12 degrees, 12 months a year.
That's it.
Yeah,
Okay.
It's not, it may go from an average of 88 to an average of 92, that kind of thing. We do have hills and small mountains, so those people who live there actually need sweaters and stuff in the evening and early in the morning. Okay. But I'm down in the flats, and above sea level by maybe just 500 feet.
But is it humid year round?
Yes, it's
Okay.
a humid weather. It feels a lot like, let's say, Hawaii might feel,
Mm-hmm.
if you've
Makes
ever
sense.
been there.
Oh,
You get
it's
off
great.
the plane
Mm-hmm.
and you feel that wave of moisture in
Yes.
the air.
It's great for plants. I mean, I love
It's
plants.
wonderful for plants, and the plants go crazy here. I
Yeah.
built the hotel and had to bring in everything, grass and everything. And within a few months, I don't know, 5 months or so, it was lush-ish. And now it's almost 2 years, and we have the gardeners whacking things all the time
Oh, wow.
because it's too lush.
Too lush. Man, I
Yeah.
love that. How far are you to the airport?
45 minutes on a good day and an hour when there's tourism.
Okay.
And
So not bad.
and when it's not COVID,
Yeah.
COVID, can you get a direct flight to the U.S.?
No, you must go either through Beijing or Singapore. Those are the two main hubs. Beijing is probably the primary one, but I wish there was a flight to LA or San Francisco, but there isn't.
So then how
You
long?
could even go the other way. You could even go to Qatar, and then from Qatar you can go to New York, for example.
So how often do you go back to the States?
I mean, normally it would be like once a year. I have a son, he's 23. I want to see him, and he sort of wants to see me. He's flexing his independence as much as he can, but he misses his dad like I miss him. We're good buddies, and that's kind of sad during COVID. But my cousins are getting married in 2022, so I think I should be able to be in America by then, by May of 2022.
Okay.
So I'll have to wait it out. But under normal conditions, my budget, the $1,500 a month, the miscellaneous setting aside money for travel is not part of that 1,500. But if you did want to do something like that, then you could say, okay, including once a year travel to the U.S., could be 1,800 a month, something like that. But under 2,000, you can live in Bali and still go to America once a year, no problem, for one person. For two people, it's even easier because you could share the cost of the residence. And, for example, a meal, if you go to a local place, could be $3 to $5 a person, including a drink. If you go to a Western place where you have everything from Australian, Italian, Korean, all those places that are not serving rice or noodles, Indonesian food, you're going to pay, $7 to $11 per person, including a beer or something like that.
Still inexpensive, yeah.
So the big question I always ask is, if I move to Bali, I never have to cook again, right? Because I can have local fare.
And just to be clear on that, you have housekeeping staff here, so you don't have to make your bed either, or do the laundry. But if you want them to cook Indonesian for extra pay, they're thrilled to offer their services. And the other thing you could do, even if you want to make Western food, is if you have them go to the pasar, which is the local market, versus the supermarket, which is where the tourists go. They can buy the chicken and the eggs and the fresh veggies and the fresh fruit for you. Again, you give them a little something extra every month, and they'll bring back food at their cost to you.
Nice.
So, you could work the system a little bit. I don't think it's a negative thing to support the local farmers and the pasar. And they don't have to say they're buying for a boule. Boule means foreigner.
Okay.
And so that's how I get 70% of my food. I still go to the supermarket for, let's say, olive oil or lemons, which is an import. So you're only going to get the locally grown food at the pasar. But there's quite a variety that they grow here, and lots of tropical fruit and things. Mango season is just, for me, it's like unbelievable how much I can try. Tropical fruit when it's seasonal. And, I have to learn about certain fruits that I have no idea what they are.
I'll bet.
White color, purple color, weird names.
Yeah.
But you can give it a try, and it's all reasonably priced.
Okay, so let me ask you, the culture, it must have been, was it a shock for you? I mean, you studied Eastern, philosophy, and you're probably more, I would say, versed than the average American. So what was that culture difference to you?
Well, in America, I would have to say we're in sort of a transactional kind of culture. So if something happens, something you want to do, whether it's go to a store or hire a contractor, fix your plumbing or something, it's a transaction that's on the clock. So, when the plumber comes, there's going to be a minimum fee, whatever, $85 for the first 30 minutes and blah, 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 blah. And by the time he's done, it could be $200, whatever, right?
Mm-hmm.
Here, you hire a fix-it person who's taught himself or he's learned from his dad how to fix the plumbing and stuff like that. He doesn't have a plumbing degree or anything, and he doesn't have a truck. He comes in a scooter, so he may have to go back and buy some parts.
Mm-hmm.
So he's going to come assess the situation, hopefully fix it right then, but 9 times out of 10, he'll need a part. So then he's going to drive 20 minutes, get the part, come back, fix it. By the time he's done, he's put in maybe 2 hours, and he's going to charge you labor, between, let's just say 100,000 rupiah. So again, 140,000 is $10. So he's going to charge you $7 to $8 labor.
Oh my goodness.
And that's, they're happy because if they make, $20, $25 a day, that's good money for a plumber or electrician. Wow. So you have to get used to being around people where their cost of living, their needs are very different. They have data on their phone. They could stream, YouTube just like us, but they're paying $3 a month, not $60. And, they'll have a scooter, but they'll drive that scooter for 20 years. You can see a lot of old scooters. They know how to repair and upkeep the scooter. They may not renew the license. They certainly don't have insurance. But their cost of transportation, assuming they own the scooter, is, $10 to $15, $20 a month to get from point A to point B anywhere in Bali. Food, they don't go to the supermarket. They go to the pasar. They'll have chicken if they can afford it. They'll always having rice and noodles. And veggies are abundant here, and fruit. So being around people that don't have a lot of needs, that means they don't do a lot of transactions. And when they do them, they're not, my hour, my 15 minutes, like a lawyer charges you every 15 minutes. That would be a very, very foreign concept to Indonesian people. Now, there are lawyers here, and they are starting to learn how to charge these types of things. But for Westerners, you have to start thinking different about when I interact with somebody. It's not transactional. This person is going to put two or 3 hours of their life into helping me, and it's going to cost me, $15. They have something here called Gojek, which is kind of like Uber, but on a scooter. And they also have other services, GoCar and all this stuff. But the Gojek scooter drivers, you could order, for example, fresh coconut water. So you'll find them on Facebook or something like that.
Is there much crime in Bali?
That's a good question. There is petty crime in Bali. So, and not the Balinese primarily, because they're Hindu and they believe in karma, which is a philosophy where you the behavior you have in this world will impact your rebirth. So you need to be a good person in this world so that when you come back, you're even better. And you'll see that there's all kinds of stores here that have statues and things that they don't lock up at night. That, no one's going to steal those because those are the gods, first of all. And second of all, the Balinese don't steal. But the workers from Java and other islands come to Bali and come to the tourist areas for work. And they will live in these costs, like I mentioned, or some of the construction workers live on site in temporary housing. And during our construction, I was a little bit careless. I had a backup phone that cost me under $100, but it did get stolen. That was the only thing during a year with maybe 30, 40 people on site every day. Mm-hmm. So I would call that petty theft, and you just have to be careful about that. I have a safe for my documents, like my ownership documents of Ohana and things like that. But big thefts here don't happen. They're just looking for phones and laptops and things like that.
So there's no physical crime, like someone's going to come up and...
No one's going to murder you or anything like that. No, I mean, the Java people here, they will steal something before they go back to their village. Besides whatever income they have, if they can grab an extra phone, that's just extra money. They may not come back to Bali to work, and they just want as much money as they can before they go home. But that is all petty theft. They're not going to hurt you or anything. Now, I will say that occasionally, if you're driving by on a scooter, especially women, if they're carrying their bag, sometimes they grab the bag. And in that case, the woman might, or man, but usually might fall off the scooter. So there may be an injury involved. Mm-hmm. But things like rape and things like that is rare.
Good.
Not zero, but rare.
Right.
So you can walk around at night feeling safe.
Oh yeah. Okay. We can walk in. I mean, I don't walk 2 or 3 in the morning, but any time of reasonable night, 10, 11 p.m., no problem, along the beach, whatever.
Mm-hmm. So, Neill, do you have a car? I mean, do you feel that you need a car? Oh.
No, we could hire a driver for the day or the month, not really by the week. If you're a tourist, you can hire by the week. But for us, it's a choice of a monthly person who would be here all the time. They'd literally be here waiting for us to go to the grocery store. Or some families that come for international schools, they will have a driver to take their kids back and forth to the school, then take the parents or the family to the beach or to the grocery store, and they'll hire a driver. And that'll be, I don't know, $6 million a month, so $400 a month. You get a driver every day, 6 days a week, something like that. And the average work week is 6 days, not 5.
I assume that as a hotel owner that you would have a car because you might need this, you might need that.
We have a network of car owners that are happy to come by, like at the drop of a hat. So we can get people. We can get people to the airport. We can get people here, or if they want to go to a waterfall or something like that, we can get them here within 30 minutes. So I mean, this is what I was talking about with the Gojek, is that there's a whole culture here of workers on demand.
Service.
And it's actually a fabulous thing for the Indonesians, because Gojek is an Indonesian company. I think it was based in Singapore, but massive employment by, I don't want to say million, but maybe 1 million scooter drivers, hundreds of thousands. All the different islands have it.
I just want to cover 2 more things real quick. One is, would you consider Bali elder friendly?
I would say that is it elder friendly? I would say that the orientation has been for people to come here and find a villa and get the help they need to manage day in and day out. So get the gardener, get the housekeeper, maybe get a chef or a cook. And that would all be within the confines of, four walls and a gate. And you come into your own house and you live your own life. And many Australians, for example, they're the primary expats here. They do that. So they look at retiring to Bali like we would look at retiring to Mexico, something like that. Mm-hmm. And that's not a community feeling. It's like, my wife and I were going to go retire to Bali, and we're going to go live in our own little cocoon of our own villa, and maybe we'll make some friends and all that. And that's what people have done here. And there's a few places now that are retirement communities, maybe just 2 or 3 or 4. But I mean, I'm interested in building one or helping co-build it with others, because I think there is a need for groups of people who are going to get old together. Mm-hmm. But we don't really have, I would say we don't have very much of that, much less than 1% of the people are living in communities.
Okay. I think, Gene, you had a question?
Yeah. You had mentioned before we went on the broadcast that you're not so, you don't love the word retire. Can you talk a little about that?
Well, yeah, I mean, I'm 63, as I said, and I came here with the idea of retiring. So, taking walks, reading books, making tea, going out to dinner or cooking. Everything you think about retiring, that's what, the classic way. That was in my mind too. Okay, I'm retired. At that time I was 60. But my mental faculties, my body, I walk, up to 3 or so miles a day, 2 to 3 to 4 miles a day, not extensive like some people, but pretty good. I swim usually once a day. I'm not super healthy, but I'm healthy. And my brain is working. So after a while, you have to say, how can I contribute to society on some level, whether it's to other foreigners or maybe work with locals or volunteer or something. And to me, because I had done some building, I was very curious about the building process here. I used wood and 2x4s, and we had nail guns and all this stuff in America. Here you build primarily with concrete and bamboo sticks that support the concrete floor, temporarily for 2 weeks. They build up a support for this heavy concrete that they're going to pour. And I just had a curiosity about it. So one thing led to another, and I have a nice little guest house with 6 rooms. It's very nice, but I don't like the word retire, because I think it means heading towards an ending, of being completely useless. And being useless is, I think, a negative thing, and probably makes you live less. So having something meaningful, something that you're doing, it doesn't have to be a business. It doesn't have to be a transactional thing. Volunteering is, my partner volunteers. She's Christian, so she goes and supports these Christian efforts for medical care for people who can't afford, even at the local price, they can't afford a particular surgery or something like that. She'll help arrange groups of people to fund that.
Nice.
So it's just something that gives people meaning. But retire is this word that, in my mind, is like, okay, find a place like I did that has beautiful sunset, and you can read to your heart's delight, and the day can unfold, very casually, and this idyllic setting, and it's lush and beautiful around you, and you could watch the rice fields go from seedling to harvesting, and it's all very beautiful.
Yeah.
But then you wake up and say, what else can I do? What else am I capable of doing? Mm-hmm. So part of it was writing a blog, about retiring and what that's like. Part of it was building this Ohana retreat. And I think everybody will find that thing. Once they once they do the important thing, which is get your cost of living down so it's affordable, so that retirement, not the word retirement, but independent living, let's say.
Mhm.
So can you live independently when you're 58 or when you're 62 or whatever the age is that's right for you? Once you make that decision, whether it's moving your stuff or having an estate sale, once you've made that decision, you are going to minimize your expenses to some extent, if you have to. And then you've got your bases covered. But now you have a new problem. So you're going to wake up every day and you don't have the job. You might have your Social Security, you might have your income sources. But then what is it that you're going to do? And that, if you live in an area that's not very expensive, that means there's no pressure for you to figure this out. And that's the beauty of living in another country.
That's a really good point.
That's not expensive like America. In America, I always felt the pressures on. If I am going to do something, that's why I did spec housing. Okay, I'm going to turn this thing around, try to make $100,000 this year. And one year I made 58, the other year I made 90 something.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't quite meet my goals, but I was making a living. But I was I was kind of working, and it wasn't relaxed. And I was in a strange place, living in a rental with a shag carpet and stuff from the 70s or 80s.
Yeah.
I don't know. It was filled with sand and dust. And it's like, oh, is this the life I really want? Right. And it turns out that it wasn't, and I'm happily now, transitioned. But it took me a long time. When I was 18 and I went to Europe, I said I want to live in another country. It took me over 40 years to figure that out. But now I figured it out. So I'm glad
and you're young. I mean, by my standards,
I'm sort of young.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm glad you interviewed me so that I could sort of, say whatever lessons I learned. Mm-hmm. And part of the lesson is don't give up. I really spent 4 decades not focused. And then I was like, now I can, now I can really live somewhere. And the pressure's off, Nice. Even if during COVID I had 0 guests, I knew I was going to survive this. I'm not going to make money. I'm going to actually lose a little money every month, but I'm okay. I'm prepared.
Right.
And I've minimized my expenses so that I can manage this thing. Mm-hmm. So that's what it's a new sense of freedom, I guess, is what you could say.
Right. Well, that's wonderful. That's really good, wise advice. And
it's
for
not
us,
easy.
No, I mean, I think it's going to take time. Work, I've always had, or maybe it was self-imposed stress. And that's one thing that ages you. I know it brings on health issues. Stress has got to be the worst thing for anybody, for the human soul.
Absolutely. And knowing that you have the stress is almost a incentive, to say, okay, this is part of my life now. I have this stress. Mm-hmm. How can I make my life less stressful? And it has to be a set of steps. Mm-hmm. Because you're not going to do it instantly. There's no instant switch, right? Yeah. So in my case, it took 3 years to find the place. And, then I had to deal with moving my stuff or not moving. But eventually, after, let's say, 4 years or so, I'm in a new groove. I'm definitely in a less stressful space in my life. Mm-hmm. And that's 4 years of working on it. Once I even figured out that I can do it, it still took 4 years. Now, people can do it in less. I think you could do it in a year and a half if you really have it together. But it's going to be a process, and it's going to be a process of change. Do I run off to the supermarket and buy the high price thing, or do I wait until my housekeeper can go to the pasar for me and get it a little cheaper? It's not a big difference in price, but if I wait, I'm not in a rush, right? I just have all day to do whatever. So I'll just wait and get the cheaper thing, know. And that's in each of those tiny steps make a difference. Do I need a new T-shirt now, or can I wait, 6 more months or whatever? And then I'll do it when I have to do it, but I'm not crazy, like, okay, I got to buy it now,
Right.
and pay later, and then the bills are too high, and now the stress is here, and you don't want that. So
Right.
it's a series of changes that you must make, but then it's not rocket science. It's not genius level stuff. It's just step by step.
Right. It's getting
anyone can do it.
It's slowing down the hamster wheel. I mean,
Slowing
that's
down
how
the
I
hamster
feel
wheel.
right now.
You too, you're actually in a very, very, very good situation with your retirement package. There are some places, there are communities in the Southeast, I think it's in Virginia or something, that are lovely retirement communities with massive areas for walking and tennis and golf and you're not going to be, it's not going to be Bali cost of living, but if you have healthcare covered in America, you can kind of wipe that bill off the plate, and then you can put a little bit more money into housing and things like that. But you guys could, I'm sure you could easily do it, because the healthcare is the big killer in America.
Yeah, and we've got that. So
just make your list. Go through a spreadsheet. I started with a spreadsheet. What am I paying for? What am I paying for every?
I've been doing that the last 2 years.
Good. That's a big help.
Yeah. Okay.
So you'll figure it out. And
So
let me know. Let me know wherever you end up. I would like to know.
No, absolutely. We're going to stay in touch, but we want to thank you for
thank you
all
so
your
much.
time. And I'm sorry about the
my pleasure.
Wi-Fi. And but it's been really great. It's been really great meeting you. It really
same here.
Yeah, it's really
and
nice.
If you don't retire in Bali, if you happen to visit Asia, swing by and if you don't stay with us, just at least come say hello.
Yeah, will do. All right. Take care.
Thank you so much.
All right. Bye-bye.
Have a good day.
Bye.
We hope you've enjoyed this episode. If you know someone who's relocated for retirement and wishes to share their story with us, please reach out to us. We'd love to hear from you. Our email address is gg@retirethere.com. Our website is retirethere.com, and you may follow us on Twitter @retirethere_. Now, if you've liked our show, please subscribe and rate it in Apple Podcasts. In the meantime, be well.